All right, welcome to week 5. So week 5, we move in a slightly different direction. We move to a new section of the course. So this first section, we explored kind of some basic perspectives on morality. What is good, what is wrong? Is the source of morality opinion, or is it something more universal? Are there right and wrongs that are right and correct, regardless of your opinion or not? So certainly we explored that. And we also explored this idea of radical egotism, the notion that everything is about you, that you're the only thing that matters. And we explored the radical form of it with Adam Lanza, and I would argue certainly Westboro Baptist Church. And then we also explored other forms of egotism in your daily life. You know, for example, the You're Not Special video, asking whether people in today's society think of themselves too highly, think that the world revolves around them. And then we argued, or we looked at cases where there's potential egotism involved. Some people thought the cases did demonstrate egotism, and did demonstrate an egotism that was too much, too great a self-absorption. Others argued that no, this was maybe egotistic but not morally wrong. And others argued that these cases weren't a demonstration of self-absorption or egotism at all, and those would be the Razor Ramon cases, the shuttle service, from the RAB, and then the Rock of Ages, the video, where people went to see the show 20 plus times. So we've studied this idea of egotism, we've studied this idea of self-absorption, and ultimately, if you're a relativist, you'd say, look, it's just a matter of opinion. Whether it's be a cultural opinion or an individual opinion. If a culture approves of radical egotism, if it says you can spend as much time and energy in yourself as you want, if you want to concentrate on you, well, then it's right. If you're a radical egotist and you believe in subjective relativism, the idea that individual opinion is all that matters, well, then if you spend all your time and energy on others, on yourself, and you literally use others, you're literally willing to destroy others, you're literally willing to look at others only in terms of whether they're useful to you, and you're a subjective relativist, well, then you say, well, then that's just as legitimate as an opinion that would say each person is worthy of human dignity. And so the radical egotist could be considered wrong from a moral universalist perspective, but according to a relativist perspective, again, it all comes back down to opinion. So in week 5, we're moving now slightly different direction. We're starting in the same point. We're starting with the question of egotism and self-absorption. And here the question is, beginning with self-interest, where can you build morality? Can you build a basis for morality on self-interest? That's my daughter poking her head in. Caroline, do you want to poke your head in?
No.
Okay. And then I got to do this video for class. So self-interest is where morality starts according to this opinion. In other words, when you ask the question, why should I be good? Why should I be moral? This perspective would say you should be moral because it is in your self-interest, because it benefits you. Okay, Caroline, you got to stop. And the perspective is that, look, it begins with self-interest, but then ultimately it leads beyond it. It leads to traditional forms of morality. So why should you be moral? Because it's in your self-interest, because it benefits you. And ultimately, though, it's going to lead to not purely self-interest. The only thing that matters is not simply you, but others as well, because traditional forms of morality call you to consider and to respect the rights of others. The person that we're going to use to explore this kind of perspective on morality is a guy named Blaise Pascal. He's a really kind of interesting French thinker from the 17th century, had a religious conversion when he was almost killed in a carriage accident, and he's a brilliant mathematician. And essentially we're going to explore his wager. And the wager basically says, look, if you think about your self-interest, if you think about what you ought to do in terms of what is most beneficial to you, and you're rational, then you will choose religion. You will live the religious life. And he says it's not because God is absolutely certain. He argues that we'll never know for certain whether God exists or whether the afterlife is real. He would say, look, that is just simply not something that can be known with certainty. God may exist, God may not exist, the believers may be right, and the atheists may be right. We'll never know. But he argues, regardless of that fact, you should still be religious. Again, if you're rational and if you're thinking about your self-interest. And the basic idea of why he says this is because when you think about how long eternity is, It's a long time, a really long time. In fact, this world has been around for, this universe has been around for, maybe 12 billion years or something like that. And eternity is much longer than that. And he says, when you die, really there's two possibilities. Either you're going somewhere, or you are just dead. You're nothingness. There's blackness. There's no consciousness. There's just this complete absence of experience and thought. Or you go to some kind of afterlife. And he says, look, if you're going to some kind of afterlife, the rational person would want to go to the place that would reward you, that would be blessed, that would be paradise, that would be heaven in traditional religious terms. And that would be great, that would be wonderful, that would be incredible, an eternity of bliss, forever being as absolutely happy as you can be. And the opposite perspective, the opposite potential would be something like hell, where you literally suffer for eternity, where you're literally in torment without end. And he says that's pretty stark. And so when you think about your life, think about the fact that you're only living a tiny amount of time, less than a blink of an eye when you consider it in relationship to the scope of the universe or eternity. Your life is over like that, and it could end at any second. You could walk out the door today and be hit by a car. And he says, okay, when you think about that, you think about this tiny time that we have on Earth, and you think about the fact that what we do on Earth could lead to an eternity of suffering or happiness, then rationally, it makes sense to bet on religion. Maybe you're going to be right, maybe you're going to be wrong, but rationally, that's what you should do, because the stakes are so great. They're so high. And, in the reading, you're going to explore this in further depth, and you're going to be able to talk about it in your discussion boards. And, again, I look forward to the week ahead. So for Pascal, you begin with self-interest, you begin with this is beneficial to me, but ultimately, when you begin with that question, Pascal thinks you're going to become religious and you're going to become moral. And that is something that is really worthwhile. So you'll end up being a person that is not simply about you. And that's why it's not a perspective that is radically egotistic. All right. Have a great week.